see. There we go. So, because I've had a couple of questions about some of the tarot spreads that I use, and I also was sent a deck from a company, and I want to share that with you all. So, we're going to start off with the unboxing of the deck. Well, technically, not a real unboxing because I've used this deck already. So we're going to start off with a unboxing slash review. I'm going to show you one of my top spreads that I've been using now for over a decade. Almost every morning I'm doing this spread um, to find out how my day is going to go and then reflect, adjust, that type of thing. And then we will move into the top mistake that you may be making in your career. Hey, Rotunda, thank you. We're going to talk about not only this spiritual thing in the beginning, but then move into a top tip that you may be making, a top mistake that you may be making in your career and not even know it until it's too late. You all know that as I take this pivot and start to help out organizations specifically geared in healthcare, a lot of the work that I do is much of what I did in Yashiga's intuition, mentoring, coaching, that one-on-one guidance. And a lot of times I work with leaders and companies will bring me in to work with these leaders right before they're about to lose their job. And oftentimes they're blindsided. And so if you are expecting to progress in whatever career it is that you have, I want to give you a top tip that you can take with you so you don't make these same mistakes and get blindsided and be at risk of losing your job. And then subsequently, I'll tell you how you can get more information on that as well. So let's get into the spiritual tips. So just really quickly, if this is your thing, then stay tuned. This is always going to be a part of who I am. So if this is not your thing, then you can either just chill out, hang with me, or maybe you'll learn something. So I was sent this deck by the manufacturer, the Native Spirit Tarot deck. And so I wanted to share it with those of you that really are into tarot and just want to try out a new deck. First of all, most of the time when you buy a tarot book, deck is going to come with a guidebook, and the guidebooks are pretty they don't have a lot of information in them. So if you are a new reader and you're trying to learn from the little book that came with your tarot deck, you may find that you are struggling a bit. And like I said, it's usually because they don't explain things very succinctly. However, I like this guidebook. So for those of you that do know, you know that you're not going to get this kind of a book in your tarot deck where it actually will not only show you a color picture of the card, but then give you a lot of meaning and interpretation. Usually these little books are half-assed. This deck is based on the tarot interpretations of like the Rider-Waite deck. So if you are familiar with that very traditional deck, then you're going to find that there is some overlap from this deck and the actual Rider-Waite. And that is the deck that I've taught all my students for many years on how to read from, is the Arthur-Waite, the Rider-Waite. Sorry. All right, so let's just pull a couple cards so I can show you what they look like. The back is really cute. It has this little symbol on it. And for those of you that read reverses, the image is the same each way. So if you do read reversals, you're not going to be swayed by your own bias and your own ego just by seeing the back of the card. So they consistently do look the same, upright or reverse. Second thing I want to show you is just some of the images. So if you are familiar with the Rider-Waite deck, then you know in the Fool's card, this card looks very similar to the Rider-Waite deck. So if you have that background, then I would invite you to, branch out and try some of these other interpretive decks that have become popular over the most recent years. The thing that I'm always going to have an issue with, if you have learned from me or you've been listening to me for many years about these tools, is that when you don't start off with a traditional deck, what you will find is that you lose some of the interpretation that comes from learning the tradition and the history of tarot. you learn how to do color psychology. You learn how to um, look at certain images like clouds and color and things like that to help you gain a more rich interpretation of the card. But as you can see, when you start to branch into these more novelty decks, you're not getting a lot of color here in this card. So the color that you would get in a traditional deck that would help you learn meanings, for instance, the clouds would tell you something about confusion or depression or things like that. You have to just interpret this based on the book and based off of your intuition, and then you lose out on that rich history that comes from learning from a traditional deck first. So that is I'm always going to toot my own horn, because a lot of students that I work with, they just want to learn how to read and they just want to dive in, and they you can ask any of my students, I always slow them down, because you need to look at every element of the card. What is each little element in the picture telling you? What are the colors telling you? Are there symbols there that you need to pay attention to, etc.? So while I have no problem with collecting decks, I have hundreds of decks. What I do have a problem with is you maybe starting from this type of a deck if you want to be a better reader. Now, if you just want to learn how to make quick little interpretations, that's fine. The other reason why I teach tarot the way that I do is because not only do you learn the rich symbolism within the card, some of these symbols travel through different religions, through different spiritual modalities. And so you're able to take the things that you learn by learning how to read these cards, and then you're able to translate that into other things. For instance, you might find that red in your religion is very similar to the red in the tarot card. And so you're able to understand the power of the thought, the emotions, the symbols, such as the pentacle, the symbol on the pentacles, when you move into other religions. They all kind of feed off one another, whether or not we choose to be caught up in our own dogma that keeps us all divided. So I just wanted you to see that. If you are on Instagram, I want to show you a couple of photos, because the second question that I got asked was, what tarot spreads do I recommend? So I have put out a book for like the last 5 or 6 years on tarot. And what you're going to see on Instagram that you won't be able to see on some of these other platforms, because they don't let me share video, is that, oh, hold on, all of you guys, I might be able to share. Let me see if I can find it for you all too. Bear with me 1 minute, because I do want you all to be able to see this. Instagram can already see it, but let me see if I can pull it up for you all on the other platforms to kind of show you that I'm not doing something magical with my tarot. I have been doing the same thing for eons and it's not broke. I don't fix it. So let's see if I can pull this up for you all on YouTube and everything, so you can kind of see what Instagram is able to see on their screen by pulling up this picture. So, all right, now let me share my screen. Do not laugh at all the tabs I have open. It's a hot mess. All right, here we go. Everybody should be able to see it now. So the first thing that I do is I shuffle the cards, and at minimum, I have you pull out 6 cards, and you're going to see what these cards mean in a second. Usually I lay the cards out, if I'm teaching a beginner, in the picture that you see, where you have 1, 2, 3, and then right below it you have 4, 5, 6. So you just have 2 rows of 3 cards. Now, I'm a little bit more advanced. I've been reading tarot for a very long time. So my reading for this same thing is 12 cards, because I'm adding extra layers and extra depth, because I don't just look at this reading as it informing me on my day. I also want to know what I can do about certain things in order to shift energies that I do not like, or feel that I won't like. And I also like to lean into energies that are going to be positive. So that's number one. So this is all coming out of the tarot book that I've published for many years. And so let's see. Now I'm going to switch to a different picture so that y'all can see. So then it's a little cut off on Instagram, but basically what I do is card number one is going to tell me something significant about what's happening between 12 a.m. and 8 a.m. Card number two is going to tell me what's going on between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. The third card is telling me what's going on between 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. So I have broken my day down into 3 time chunks so that I can specifically pull a card for that specific chunk to learn more about what's going to happen in my day and kind of when it's going to happen. And for you, you could break this down even more. You could break it down into 1 hour increments, 2 hour increments, whatever you think is fitting for you. So then card number 4 tells me the advice for the day. So this card is important because it may tell you a certain mood that you have to adapt, a certain kind of a reminder that you may have to consider throughout your day. So I just use that to help me center and ground into whatever it is that I need to lean into for the day. So for instance, if let's see, trying to pick a card for us. So like for instance, if I choose the 10 of Cups, then I know that the advice for today is all about my emotional well-being, being in a space where I feel overjoyed, where I feel content, where I'm being grateful for the things that I have, and keeping my energy open for the good things that are meant to come into my life. And it's just going to tell me it's an overall good day. Enjoy it, lean into it, capitalize on it so that I can magnify that positive energy. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Card number 5 is the significant event of the day. So while I know in a time breakdown what's happening between 12 and 8, what's happening between 8 and 4, and then what's happening between 4 and 12, I also have this idea of a more significant event of the day that's going to happen. And this is the one that I pay attention to, particularly if I want to shift energy, if I want to pay attention, if I want to be aware and intentional, because it gives me an idea that there's this overarching theme or event that is going to happen. And when I'm reading my cards, if I feel that the card makes me uncomfortable or I don't like the vibe of the card, that doesn't mean I need to be scared, because these cards are only telling you probabilities of what can happen. But at any time, you are in control of your life. So you can look at this meaning of this card, and if it's telling you something that doesn't sit well with you, or maybe you would like it to look better, what you can do is be mindful throughout your day so that you can shift your energy. And if you are able to shift your energy, then you are going to be able to create different outcomes for yourself. So then number 6, the last card, is the relationship love insight card. And what that does for me is, because I like to be mindful in my relationship with Greg about what's coming up, what do I need to pay attention to, what do I need to do a little bit more of, what do I need to do a little bit less of, that type of thing. So again, it helps me to be more intentional and mindful, specifically in one area of my life that is important to me. You can make this whatever you want. Maybe for you, you're going through financial stuff, you're going through mindset stuff, you're going through other challenges or things that you want to pay attention to. You may change the title of this for that 6th card, and that is how you're going to get some information about what it was. As long as you assign meaning to the cards in the spread that I showed you, then you're going to be able to pull your tarot cards, and they're going to give you more information about your day so that you can be in control of how you can change, shift, and reflect on the day. So here's the big part that everybody skips because they get real lazy with learning tarot. They want to just jump in, they want to do it, but they don't want to do it right or use it to their full advantage. The third thing that I do, and this usually happens at night after the day is passed, or it will happen the day after, I look at the cards that I pulled. And this was integral into me really learning how to give such deep and such rich tarot readings, was actually reflecting on how I interpreted those cards versus what truly and really happened, so that I could see my interpretation versus what actually happened, how to become more accurate. Where did I get it wrong? Where did I get it right? Where was it even better than I thought it would be? Where is it worse? Where did I go shallow when I should have went deep? Where did I go philosophical when I should have went literal? Because you start to then not only see your blind spots so you can correct them in your tarot reading, which makes you more accurate, but you're also able to glean even more information from your card. So for instance, if you have the Eight of Cups, then you may know literally that you may be walking away from something. But when you reflect on the Eight of Cups later, what you may find is, yes, you were trying to walk away from something emotionally pulling, but maybe you thought it was going to be a rift in your relationship or a friendship, when in fact it was you struggling with the diet that you've been trying to keep for set amount of time. So anyway, so if you are new to tarot and you want to get practice happens every day. And if you want to do some meaningful daily practice, daily work, then this is what I would recommend for those of you wanting to really get better at reading your cards. I like this deck, the Native Spirit Tarot deck. I'm going to show some more pictures of it. I like the deck, but again, if you don't know how to read tarot yet, it falls a little flat on the symbolism that a traditional deck would give you. But nevertheless, for those of you that are more advanced, very beautiful, very inspiring images. And I would recommend this deck. All right, so if you have any questions about this, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move into the topic of the podcast. So this part of our discussion will not be on the podcast. What will be on the podcast is probably one of the top mistakes that you may be making in your career that can get you fired, but you really don't even know you're doing it, usually until it's too late. So we're just going to do a whole new intro. So thank you, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, the Leading in Healthcare podcast, where we discuss top tips for you being a leader in your personal and professional life. And today, for the first episode of the podcast, since we have made yet another transition, we are going to be discussing the top mistake that you may be making in your career and not even know it. And this is something that I always see happen, and it usually blindsides leaders. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about something you've probably never heard of, called the Peter Principle. The Peter Principle was a term that was developed in the 70s from some psychologists, some business leaders that got together, and they came up with this principle. And it may happen to you because it's happened to me in my own career, where you start off doing your job, right? You're maybe like your first job in your company, and you get really good at that job. So good that people keep piling on responsibilities, or so good that you end up moving into these other positions, progressively getting promoted in your company, not because you wanted to or not because you applied to these jobs, but because people have recognized the value that you created in your current position. And so therefore they're like, well, hey, you might be good as a charge nurse or a director or, that type of thing. And so you keep progressing, and every level you are able to kind of hang on by the seat of your pants. Maybe you learn that job, maybe you do really good at that job. And so as you continue to do this, you continue to progress until something happens. And this is where the Peter Principle comes in, where you finally reach a level of what should be success, but you didn't do it in an intentional way. You did it because you were very good at your previous responsibility. So you've kind of been thrust into this role. And what people find is that once they get to this level that I'm going to describe, they feel overwhelmed, they feel stressed out, they feel what you guys know, I don't believe in the term, but you feel imposter syndrome. And sometimes you find yourself getting write-ups, getting in trouble, missing stuff in your job, and feeling really confused because you did so good in the previous positions that you did. So the Peter Principle is saying that we get promoted to this certain level based on the competencies that we've proven before. But what we forget is that one day you're going to get into a position where the competencies of that job require you to stretch and to grow. And the skills that you learned in your previous jobs, roles, even if you were super successful, may not be what's going to keep you successful where you progress currently, where you're thrust. And so if you look at the jobs that you did in the past and you look at the competencies, the core competencies that are required in order to complete that job successfully, and then you're overwhelmed, you're stressed because now you find yourself not liking your job in a position where you're overwhelmed, you have all these responsibilities and you feel like you don't know what to do. And you look at the current competencies of that particular job, what you find is that there is a mismatch. The same skills that are going to help you be a nurse or a doctor are not the same skills that are going to help you be a medical director or a dyad partner or whatever type of leader you go into next, or a manager. Are not the same skills that are going to take you to the level of VP or having your own practice or whatever it is that you want to succeed in life. And so if you don't pay attention to not only what you have been good at, and so people are thrusting you into these leadership roles, and not pay attention to what is actually needed to be successful into the role that they are thrusting you into, what you may find, and usually when I'm working with people, they find out too late that they have missed the part about the competencies that are needed to then grow into the job that people just assume they would be good at because they did their past jobs well. How you can solve this problem is, again, start to look at what is actually required for you to be basic at the job. And you're going to find that in the job description. You're going to find that by speaking to other people that do the job. So you can know before you even take a job, even if you were good at your past jobs, and yes, it is time for you to grow, looking at the job description, the core competencies of what that job entails, along with speaking with other people that are doing the job currently, is going to let you know, number one, just because you've been good at all these 3 jobs in the company and you know everybody in marketing and accounting, it doesn't mean that when you get to this certain level where you're trying to progress in your career, that you're going to know what to do. You will know exactly what those competencies are. You can rate yourself honestly and objectively against those competencies, and then you have a decision to make, right? You either can decide that, okay, I really want this role. There are a couple of things that I'm not good at, but I'm willing to learn them. And then you can take the job. But if you look at the next role that people are trying to push you into because that's the next step in your career, and you're not good at time management, organization, prioritization, leadership, management, having difficult conversations, then you know that you should not be moving into this job because it is not for you. And therefore, what I find is that these leaders that have been a baby nurse and then a charge nurse and assistant manager, and then they get into this director role, and then they're drowning and not understanding why they feel incompetent. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that nobody has described to you what it really takes for you to move forward in your career. And it's not you being good at the other stuff that you did. Young people, I want you to know this too, because for some reason you have gotten it in your head that you stay in this position for maybe a year or two, and then you should just be automatically moving up the ladder. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Peter Principle will hit everybody if you don't intentionally plan or develop yourself for the roles that you want to have. So if you look at the roles that you want to progress into because you think you should be promoted and you don't have those skills, then you should not be going after that job. if you are not willing to grow into those skills. So I just wanted to share this quickly as our top tip. Top one of the top mistakes that people make in their careers that gets them fired, because by the time they find out that they don't have the skills to to be successful in the next role or the role that people have put upon them, they usually find out too late. They usually find out after they've been overwhelmed, after they can't keep it all together, after they have avoided having some of the difficult conversations, so their team is falling apart, etc. So if you want to learn 4 more top tips about mistakes that you may be making in your career that ultimately will devastate your career and how to fix them, then I want you to look wherever you are listening to this or watching this, and I will have a link to my new book, The Top 5 Tips, or excuse me, Top 5 Mistakes That Leaders Make, and then how you can fix them. I'm not just going to leave you hanging. I'm going to tell you how to fix them. And then just to end for the day, just looking over some comments for those of you that are listening to the podcast. We record this live, and we have a comment from Queen J saying, "This is so helpful. I have a job interview tomorrow." And very helpful. So, Queen J, for you in your job interview tomorrow, what I would say is if it is a position that is new in a new company, something you haven't done before, or even something that you are doing to grow, I would look over that job description, look over those competencies so you can further articulate not only how you can give value to this company and why they should hire you, but if there are some things that you're not so good at, then you know that these are things that you have to work on in your growth and development in your new roles. And good luck on your job interview. So I will talk to you all next week on Sunday, and we'll have another topic to go over again. If you want to get the free book so you know more about other tips that you need to integrate so you don't ever be in danger of losing your job, then check out that booklet. And as always, I do still work with clients one-on-one, or if you work in a healthcare organization where you're struggling or a leader is struggling and you want me to specifically come and help you, support you, teach your team, blah, 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 all of the things, then you can reach out directly to me. My email is yashika@yashika.com, and I'll be happy to help you out with that. All right. And I'll leave all that information below so you can contact me. All right. See you next week. And no problem. Queen J, she says such valuable advice. No problem. I'll see you all next week. Bye.